Thank you for joining us for our next event in our virtual conversation series, A Programmatic Journey Through Homestudy. The live event will begin in 5 minutes. Before we get started, we would like to cover a few housekeeping items. First, once we begin the live event, we will open the question and answer box and ask that you submit questions as they come to mind as we proceed through the presentation. To access the Q&A session, please look at the slide currently showing on your screen. Now, look at the icon located under the statement. Please post your questions in the Q&A section. You will need to locate that icon at the top of your screen and click on it. If you are using a mobile device, Microsoft Teams may minimize the presentation view so that you will have a large view of the Q&A box. Once you're in the Q&A box, you will see two choices, Featured and My Questions at the top. To view all of the published questions, you should select Featured. Your microphones will remain muted throughout the session. The session will be recorded.
Hello, welcome to today's virtual conversation. My name is Erica McCoy, and I'm the Program Manager for the Non-DoD Schools program. We thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us for this important conversation about home study. I'm joined by several members of our team whom you will meet as we go through today's presentation. Today's session is intended to provide you with the nuts and bolts about the home study educational option. We will not cover everything, but we do believe that we will touch on the key points. As you may know, the home study policy was revised for this school year in alignment with the Department of State's changes in their regulations that occurred last school year. We have learned a lot by way of your questions over the past year. Today's session is intended to address some of those questions, and we hope to provide continued clarity. But first, we will begin with a brief program overview for those of you who may be new to the non-DoD schools program. The non-DoD schools program, also known as NDSP, is a program within the DoDEA. DoDEA has the authority in law for the funding of private schools where there are no DoDEA-operated schools in overseas locations. This provision also requires that we are in alignment with the Department of State as much as possible. It should be noted that while the Department of State and the NDSP support home study education with an allowance, there is not an overarching law that requires this funding. The reason it is important to note this is because if you find yourself in a location where there is a DoDEA school overseas or in the United States in a public school setting, you will notice that there is not an education allowance available, with limited exception to some states that may offer a small allotment for curricular materials or auxiliary services. As you can see, the NDSP currently supports just over 4,000 students in 132 countries and over 300 duty stations worldwide. The NDSP has the authority to support locations where the joint travel regulations allow dependents in locations overseas. Again, not in the US or in US territories. Within the NDSP, you will find that you have 3 educational options. You could choose to enroll your child into what we would call an at-post school. An at-post school is either a public or private brick and mortar school within commuting distance of your assignment location that provides face-to-face instruction for your child. That school might be an international school that provides instruction in English, although more often it may not be an American or US curriculum. Option 2 is to enroll your child into what we would call an away from post school or boarding school. This is where you would send your child away to a full board option. While we don't limit students by grade level, we find that the majority of parents who elect this option do so for their children in grades 6 through 12. And then option 3 is home study or virtual school, which is what today's session is focused upon. You may choose to homeschool your children by developing your own curriculum, by blending different curricula, or you might select an all-in-one package curriculum instead. You may decide that you want to enroll your child in a virtual school, either synchronous, where your child would log into a live virtual classroom, or an asynchronous classroom where they would view recordings of class presentations. Keep in mind that there are some countries where in-person attendance in school may be required by host nation law. Be sure that you're fully aware of any limitations for a home study or virtual school option by reaching out to your local community or school liaison office or your local command for more information. With that, we will dig in and we'll switch gears to discuss planning for the home study educational option. And I will turn it over to Ms. Brandy Miller.
Thank you, Erica. Hello, families. My name is Brandy Miller, and I'm one of the education specialists for Europe based in Simbach, Germany. I'm excited to let you know that a new home study resource guide is coming to the NDSP website. This guide includes links to a variety of resources, including state-by-state guidelines, virtual programs and curricular options, high school-specific resources, special education-specific information, planning for transitions, library and education resources, and resources for assessment and your progress monitoring as you move through your homeschool curriculum. And now, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kevin O'Brien.
Thank you, Brandy. My name is Kevin O'Brien. I'm the education specialist responsible for the NDSP Americas region. When planning your home study program, try using a backwards design model. In other words, start with the goal and work backwards. Plan learning experiences and instruction to support the goal and determine what acceptable evidence you will need to know you have accomplished the goal. An example may include when you know where your follow-on duty station will be and your goal is to enroll in that state or school system with minimal transition issues. You should choose a home-based education program that will easily transfer into that system. Many states, such as Florida and North Carolina, offer an online school alternative which you can choose even while you're overseas in an NDSP site. Choosing to enroll in a state's online school would allow you to meet your goal of an easy transition to that state. Another example, your child identifies a specific college or military branch or career field that they want to attend post-secondary. Reach out to that institution and ask about their homeschool admission policy, and then build your home study program to meet their admission requirements. Keep in mind, all the major universities and academies have an avenue for homeschool students to attend, but their admission standards vary widely, so be specific when you are planning instruction. Again, always start with the end goal in mind and work backwards to design your home study program to meet the goal. After you've identified your goal, choosing an accredited versus non-accredited versus blended program is one of the most important decisions to make when planning your home study program. Let me review each. Accredited programs ensure your child's curriculum are administered and evaluated against a set of established standards. Accredited programs provide official documentation such as report cards, transcripts, have a built-in evaluation system, and will provide a diploma upon graduation. In some situations, choosing accredited programs will help you meet state or college entry requirements. Oftentimes, accredited programs are nestled within broader home study programs. For example, you may choose the ABECA homeschool program. Within the ABECA program, you may choose the ABECA Academy or Independent Study. The ABECA Academy is the only option for an accredited program in ABECA. The Independent Study portion is not accredited. Look carefully when you are searching for an accredited program. Keep in mind, the only way you can qualify for a private instructor through NDSP is when you are using an accredited program that does not provide synchronous instruction. The Department of State keeps a list of accredited versus non-accredited programs on their website, or contact NDSP for more details. Non-accredited options include choosing the non-accredited portion of a broader curriculum or building your own curriculum, choosing one or multiple sources. Choosing a non-accredited home study curriculum may provide you more flexibility with time, environment, individualized curriculum, etc. It also allows you more time to take advantage of the cultural and language opportunities in your host nation, since you get to build your own curriculum and take advantage of where you live with maximum flexibility. A third option is a blended approach and may be more appropriate to meet your educational goal, especially in middle school or high school. For example, a student may choose an accredited Algebra 2 course, but use a more blended approach for other subjects. The blended programs are unique and agile by both combining the flexibility of curricular choice with the reassurance of certain subjects in an accredited format. Remember to start with the end in mind by using a backwards design model and choosing the type of program that fits your family best. It will help you achieve your educational goals. To further discuss accredited or non-accredited or blended programs, reach out to your education specialist. They're experts in guiding NDSP families, and we are here to help. Next, we have Dr. Shanna Smalls to talk to you about your home study plan.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi, I'm Dr. Shanna Smalls, our Programs Education Program Specialist, and I'll be speaking with you today about the Home Study Education Plan. The purpose of the education plan is to develop a comprehensive roadmap for your child's academic school year. It is a working document that you can adjust as your child progresses if needed. When designing your plan, consider what you want your child to accomplish by the end of the school year. Do they have gaps in their previous curriculum that needs filling? Are there particular subjects, core, or electives that you want to incorporate into your child's school year? The updated education plan will assist in solidifying your objectives. When choosing standards, note that the DSSR requires that you select standards consistent with what you would find in the DMV, which stands for the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. You can certainly choose another state's standards. However, it is your responsibility to ensure alignment with the DMV. Also, make sure that you remain organized and keep copious documentation to be prepared for any possible unexpected stateside return that requires you to show documentation of your child's home study education. Families are often asked to provide a portfolio of work samples, assessment results that display progress towards grade level standards, and end-of-year completion and proficiency data. Again, it is vital that you stay organized and produce this information quickly when transitioning to a new secondary or post-secondary learning environment. Now, let's look at what's included in the education plan. If you look at the diagram showing on the screen, you will see all of the elements. First, you will determine what type of curriculum you use. For example, will it be blended or will it be an all-in-one curriculum? Next, you see that self-certification is a component, as well as information about coursework, text, materials, and other resources. As you plan, you should start gathering a list of text, materials, and other required resources. The list does not have to be comprehensive and can be tweaked, but it will help you plan your purchases and get insight on any items you wish to have predetermined as allowable or non-allowable. We will discuss allowable or non-allowable expenses a little further into the presentation in more detail. You may always reach out to us if you have questions or need clarification on the plan. Now, the education plan consists of two parts. The first part is currently showing on the screen. This part requires that you self-certify in two areas. First, as previously stated, you will verify that your academic plan aligns with the school system within the DMV. Be aware, again, that the DMV's academic requirements square with those of most states and should not require you to make significant changes in your planning. Part 1 also requires that you self-certify that you monitor your child's yearly progress. Adequate yearly progress means that your child is on target or above grade level in each of their courses, and their overall performance is comparable to your selected state's academic requirements. High school students will need to be on track to graduate within their 4-year cohort and be prepared for their post-secondary ventures. You will also have to declare which state standards your child will follow and identify what type of curriculum, again, they will utilize. Now on to part 2. With the information you've gathered while pre-planning, you will complete this part of the education plan, which is pictured currently on the screen. You will actually enter the courses your child will take, both core and electives. Then you will enter your materials that align specifically with each class to include any supplemental materials you determine are needed. This section of the education plan aligns directly with the reimbursement tool. So again, you can seek pre-approval for items that you may be unsure about before your official submission for reimbursement. You do this by selecting the pre-approval option on the form. Of course, as we stated before, as your child progresses through the school year, you can make tweaks to the plan. Nevertheless, including as much information during this initial planning stage will help you alleviate surprises on the back end. Once you complete this form in its entirety, you will upload both parts to the sponsor portal. The management team will review your plan and provide feedback or contact you if any additional information is necessary. It is important to remember that once you create and submit your plan, if it requires changes, you should add them to your existing plan, resave it, and submit it. We ask that you not submit a totally new plan for each change that you make. Also note that both parts of the education plan include helpful tools and pop-up tips to make completing them simpler. And part 2 has a sample entry at the top. Feel free to contact the Homestudy team using the contact information we will provide at the end of the presentation. Now, I will pass the baton back over to Ms. Erica McCoy so she can discuss more about funding and the education allowance.
Thank you, Shanna. We value the choices that parents make in the best interest of their child's education, and probably one of the biggest questions we get when it comes to home study is about what is reimbursable. So we'll dig into that shortly. We also hope that we can explain the parameters that the NDSP has as a government entity with regard to what is reimbursable. It should be noted that when we are reimbursing for items, they do become your personal property, which does have a higher threshold of review and audit, no different than any other personal item that the U.S. government would purchase on behalf of an employee. In the context of education, educational funding is generally for a classroom setting, and it's usually used for several students over, year after year. And so keeping that in context, we are trying to balance that context out with what we are fiscally able to reimburse. And we're learning from you about new programs and approaches, and we try our best to be as forward-leaning and as individualized as we can be, while also balancing policy to ensure that we are fair and equitable with our decisions. With that, I will hand it over to Robert Downs to discuss the allowable and non-allowable expenses in more detail.
Thanks, Erica. I'm Robert Downs, and my focus within the NDSP is program management, excuse me, eligibility and home study. Thanks for tuning into our presentation today. Hopefully today we can help answer some of your questions either through this presentation or during the question and answer sessions after the end of our presentation. Among the most frustrating aspects for parents embarking on this home study journey is trying to figure out what our program can and can't pay for. It can even appear that we're being overly restrictive when it comes to those items that we can and can't approve. Please know that we do hear your frustration. Families are asking, why do we look so closely, especially when their home study materials don't come anywhere close to what we would pay if their children were attending a private school? Our answer to that is, as Erica mentioned earlier, that we're charged with ensuring that government funds are responsibly obligated and executed. Another common question is, why are we given a higher allowance if we can't spend it all? Our answer to that is that those higher amounts are available to support families who opt for virtual schools, which, while not as expensive as a private school, they're still much pricier than a standard home study curriculum. Many parents opt for an all-in-one curriculum package in which all the core subject areas are covered by the vendor's programs, while others will opt for a blended program that a parent designs for their children. Still, there are others who may opt for a virtual school format. The common thread in all of this is that the parent prepares the home study plan by documenting their choices and the materials that they need to teach those classes to their children. We'll cover music and PE classes, either online or in group classes. For kindergarten through 6th grade, we'll cover 2 hours per week for each of those areas, while for grades 7 through 12, we'll cover 4 hours per week. When it comes to group classes, we do understand that you might not be able to find a local group in the community. If you have an NDSP eligible sibling group who are all taking these classes, we would consider that to be a group class. When you're looking for guidance regarding those allowable, non-allowable materials, your very first stop should be our website where we address those questions. The website, along with our FAQs, provide most of the information that you'll need. We'll ask that you keep these 4 things in mind when trying to determine whether an item is allowable or not. Number 1, does the item have a direct and demonstrable connection to the curriculum? For example, you may want to purchase manipulatives to help flesh out a math course. We'll ask you to document that on your home study education plan. If you have a reading curriculum that includes a reading list of books, we can cover those costs, but you must reference that reading list in your home study education plan. Number 2, is the age or grade level appropriate for your child? While we do permit some leeway in terms of grade level, if you're wanting to purchase 3rd or 4th grade materials for your child, you'll want to clearly identify how that purchase connects to your child's curriculum. Number 3, is it an item that you could reasonably expect would be provided to your child free of charge to take home and keep as personal property? Our standard practice is to gauge what would be generally available to a student in the DMV, which are, as Dr. Smalls mentioned earlier, the schools within the District of Columbia and the bordering school districts in Maryland and Virginia. If it's an item that's not provided free of charge to students, we may not be able to reimburse you for that item. And number 4, is it an item that could be considered as having broader use? While we can cover curriculum and supporting materials, there are some things that we can't pay for. We understand that you want to build the most comprehensive home study plan possible for your children. We're all for that, and we'll support your efforts to the maximum extent possible. However, there are times that we just can't provide the funding for educational materials that you want to purchase. We're not going to get into the business of telling you how to develop your child's home study curriculum. We just ask for your understanding if we can't reimburse you for an item that you've purchased. As always, if you're going through the process of developing that curriculum, if you're not sure about an item, please call or email our team for an answer. Directing you again to our website, we've documented as best we can and in broader strokes those items that are considered to be non-allowable. Leading off that list are supplies that often appear on student supply lists. For example, pens, pencils, markers, protractors, compasses, composition notebooks, poster boards, rulers. In short, if it's an item that you would typically send in your child's backpack on the first day of school, it's probably going to fall into that category. When selecting supplemental educational materials, you'll want to avoid specialty or collectible items like, just as an example, the complete hardbound collection of the works of Mark Twain, or specialty block sets and manipulatives that create nice to haves like Harry Potter castles or Lamborghini models. That's not to say that we wouldn't be able to reimburse you for books of English literature or Shakespeare's plays or books that are part of your curriculum reading list. If you can document that an item directly connects to the curriculum you're teaching, we can probably cover it. Just be wary of opting for educational materials that we can't pay for. Again, if you're not sure, just ask. We'll cover games that inform or support your curriculum, but we can't cover the cost for like Twister or Monopoly or Connect 4 or other games like that. We'll cover items like Lego Spike or Mindstorm products if that's part of your science or technology curriculum, but we won't cover items like Star Wars models and dinosaurs. We also can't cover items that have a broader use. And what we mean by that broader use term is that if it's an item that has an intrinsic value or could have some application outside of the scope of the specific course or academic program for which it was originally purchased, it would probably fall under that broader use category. You know, we can't reimburse you for the purchase of furniture or equipment or computer hardware or any kit that when completed would constitute a broader use item, like, for example, a home built computer. We can, however, cover the cost of like renting a laptop or a musical instrument if you need it to support your child's curriculum. For physical education, we can cover group classes in martial arts and CrossFit, yoga, aquatics, dance. However, we can't cover specialized instruction such as horseback riding or sailing or golf or rock climbing classes. Finally, we can't cover competitive sports programs. We can't cover the cost to participate in competitive football, baseball, basketball, or soccer team. That doesn't mean that your child can't participate. Rather, it would be a program that would have to be self-funded. What we would ask you to do, if you aren't sure about whether we can fund a certain material or program, please reach out to us either by phone or email, and we'd be happy to check into it and get an answer back to you right away. We'll ask that you take time to dive into the allowable and non-allowable materials section of our website and into the FAQs that we've put together to help answer those common questions. As for now, though, we'll move forward with our presentation with Ms. Lori Edom, who will discuss more about the reimbursement process.
Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon. My name is Lori Edom, and I'm the Resource Management Chief for NDSP. I'll walk you through our processes for reimbursement. This is a quick glance at the process for reimbursement. As explained earlier, initially you will submit your home study education plan Part 1 and Part 2. Please carefully review the allowable and non-allowable expenses because you'll want to make sure that the items purchased are allowable and align with your chosen curriculum. You'll then complete the reimbursement tool via a link on the sponsor portal. This newly created tool will be explained in the next few slides and will assist you with your home study reimbursement submission. You can file for reimbursement as needed, but please not more than once a month and after services have been rendered. If you have multiple children, please file a claim for each individual child, since each child has his or her own DSSR allowance. During the review, if needed, our team will reach out for the clarification on the submitted items for reimbursement to identify how the purchased item aligns with your child's curriculum. Please ensure you have all receipts cross-referenced on the reimbursement tool and indicate how the materials are used within your curriculum. Required documents for reimbursement include the sponsor reimbursement claim, any invoices, and receipts or proof of payment. The reimbursement payment is deposited to your bank account you have on file with the NDSP within 30 business days. You can review your claims and reimbursements in your sponsor portal or via the funding detail sheet, which is emailed to you after a reimbursement has been completed. The sponsor reimbursement tool was created for an easier computerized submission approach to our homeschool claims. We've updated the sponsor reimbursement claim form in an online format for easier listing, calculation, and submission within the sponsor portal. You'll see that each reimbursement claim is specific per child due to the individual DSSR allowance per child. As I mentioned earlier, the form is now available on the sponsor portal. I'll walk you through some simple steps now to get you accustomed to the new process. On the sponsor portal screen, select the Dependents tab at the top of the screen, annotated here in red, then select each child's tab. If your child is enrolled in a home study or virtual school program, the home study tool link will be available. The link won't appear if your child isn't enrolled in the NDSP Homestudy program. The Homestudy tool link will bring you to this form. This is a view of the newly created tool on the sponsor portal. The top of the form is auto-filled for you, while the bottom portion of the form will include the data entry portion of your purchases. You'll need to cross-reference receipts, identify the content area, provide a description of items purchased, and a cost with each transaction. We've added drop-down categories for your assistance. Please use the comments field to assist in providing additional information you feel will help in processing your claim. For example, adding URL links here is very helpful for us when researching the description of the item purchased. As noted, receipts should be cross-referenced for each transaction to simplify the receipt matching process. Reimbursements cannot be processed before items are shipped or before services have been received. The US dollar added for each item will auto-calculate for you for easier calculations. Sometimes you will purchase materials on the economy in your local foreign currency. Please use the oanda.com daily rate of the day you purchased the item to obtain the US dollar amount. It's important to note this form should only reflect US dollar amounts. Also, remember the receipt should be notated in English and reflect the item purchased to expedite the reimbursement claim. Once you've completed your entry, scroll down to the bottom of the screen to see the Create Excel File button. This automatically loads your completed Excel file and submits the Homestudy reimbursement tool within the sponsor portal. The document will automatically load and be transferred to the NDSP portal, which will be reviewed and accepted by our program analyst. This screen will show a confirmation that the document has been submitted as reflected in the status field. From this location, you can also view the document, but you can't edit it here. If you need to add additional items, please create and submit a new reimbursement claim via the tool. On this screen, you can also upload comments and receipt files. You'll upload the receipts via the sponsor portal, same as in the past. That hasn't changed. If possible, consolidate your receipts into one file packet, up to 10 receipts, and instead of loading multiple individual files. This will simplify and speed up the process for the reimbursement review for the NDSP analyst. Please select the link Upload File, Add Comment on the bottom left side of the screen and follow the prompts. You will see each additional file added to the list. These files will be automatically transferred to the NDSP portal as well. Once accepted, an email will be returned to you stating the document has been received and forwarded to the respective analyst for processing. We will provide recorded videos showing you how to complete the reimbursement tool step by step on our website for your convenience. Now to avoiding the pitfalls. I'll share some tricks of the trade for you for easier submission for Homestudy reimbursements. Some important things to keep in mind include the member and the dependent must both be in country in order for the education allowance to begin. Reimbursement should be submitted after services have been rendered. If you submit a reimbursement claim prior to services being rendered, please don't be surprised if the reimbursement is completed after the date of the services posted on the tool. Materials and supplies need to be shipped prior to reimbursement. This avoids incorrect reimbursements to you for orders that were canceled through no fault of your own. It's the same with backordered items. These must be shipped prior to submitting for reimbursement. The NDSP is a DoD entity and is subject to audits. Therefore, your signature is required on all Homestudy reimbursement claim form. As you use the Homestudy reimbursement tool on the sponsor portal, once you submit for processing, the system will prompt you for your self-certification of the items submitted. It will provide the signature and the timestamp for auditability. No additional signatures are needed. And finally, switching education options from at-post to Homestudy virtual school can be tricky, so be sure you understand the risk for out-of-pocket costs prior to withdrawing your child from their at-post school. We're happy to help you in this transition, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us for assistance. And with that, we'll go back to Dr. Smalls for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Lori. Now, I know that we've covered a lot of information during this presentation. If you still have questions after our Q&A session, feel free to contact us using the information showing on your screen. We have included the link that takes you directly to our Homestudy page and a QR code that you can scan that does the same. Please note that our website is going through an entire overhaul. So please lend us some grace on the appearance until we complete the refinement process. Now, we're going to go right into the Q&A session. Please post your questions if you have not already done so. After the Q&A session is over, we ask that you remain for the closing. Okay, so now we're live in the Q&A session, and right now we don't have any questions. If you have one, you may go ahead and post it. And again, if you look at the top of your screen and you see the question mark, that's where you submit your questions. Our team is standing by. Well, it appears that we don't have any questions. And so if there are none, we will end the Q&A session. Before you go, we do ask that you complete the feedback by using the QR code or the link above. Your feedback helps us refine and improve our events to ensure that you have the most optimized experience possible. Okay, I think that a question popped up, and so we'll go back to our Q&A session. Oh, no question, but just wanted to tell you well done. Thank you so much. We have a question. I wanted to inquire specifically what you mean by DC school approved curriculum. And basically what that means is just the curriculum that is approved in DC public schools or Maryland and Virginia. They have certain standards that students must complete. And so that's kind of what you will loosely use to help you determine your curriculum.
And Shanna, I'll just chime in here. This is Erica as well.
Okay.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think what parents should probably think about are the standards, not the specific curriculum that the school systems are using, because you have the flexibility of establishing your curriculum based on what your children or child needs. It's the standards, the overarching broad grade level standards that you're looking to as your point of reference. So every grade level in each of the school districts, across the country, but specifically the policy looks at, as we mentioned, the DMV, which is the District of Columbia and the immediate surrounding districts. And so as Dr. Smalls mentioned, those standards are fairly broad in terms of what you would find in most school districts across the country. So you're looking at the standards, and then you're establishing your curriculum in accordance with those. And so just for example, if you were thinking about selecting a specific career technology component of your child's curriculum, but your child is in first grade, and that may be something that isn't taught until 11th grade in the surrounding DMV area, that would be something that we would inquire more about, to say, well, I wonder why a first grader is learning about, something film studies, I'm just making it up, or something robotic that might be something more at the 11th grade level. So it's really to use for us and for you to use as a point of reference, not to pigeonhole you into a specific curriculum or textbook or even reading list. So I hope that answers the question more, hopefully.
Thank you, Erica. You covered a lot, definitely. On to our next question, and then we'll wait to see if that person, Brianna, had any additional questions to follow up with our answer. Is this presentation recorded in case anyone did not get to attend today? Great question. The answer is yes, it is definitely recorded and will be posted to our site within the next few days. It will be on the virtual conversation link, but we'll also have a link included on our Homestudy page that'll take you directly to it. Okay, I think some more questions are coming in. All right. Okay, the question is, what about Christian online hybrid options?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What about Christian online hybrid options?
That's a broad question. It would depend on what's included. So there's no, the policy doesn't restrict, rather it is a religious or Christian-based program, or if it's non-secular in nature. So you would just look at our allowable and non-allowable expenses to determine if the different requirements of that program meet the threshold of what we're requiring as it relates to allowable and non-allowable. So there's no restriction to it being Christian or non-Christian. You would just look at the specific components, courses, and supplemental materials to see if that would be broadly allowed. And if you're not sure, please feel free, again, I know we repeated it over and over again, but please feel free to reach out to us, and we're certainly willing to help you to discern that. So you can just fill out your education plan as Dr. Smalls went through. If there are links to specific supplemental materials or textbook resources, or even specific online courses that you want us to review before you make the purchase, please do that, and we're happy to help discern that.
Okay, another question came in. I have a special ed question. What exactly is covered? Any therapy?
Also a hard question. Your best point, because that's very individualized, and I'm not trying to be evasive, but we do have a special education allowance available for students who are on an individualized education plan, an IEP, or if you are thinking that your child needs to be assessed, your point of contact would be your education specialist. And so if you're in it depends on where you're located, you would just contact our education specialist in either the Americas. You met Kevin today, and he's actually our education specialist, one of our education specialists in the Americas. You met Miss Brandy Miller. She's one of our education specialists in Europe, and we also have a team in the Pacific. So your education specialist is your first point of contact, and they can walk you through what, to get into more detail about what would specifically be covered. The general answer is it depends on what's in your child's IEP. That's what's required for your child's educational programming, and typically that's what we would cover, but that has to be vetted with our education team and with you to make that determination.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. it looks like that may be the end of our questions. If you have one, you can go ahead and still submit. I know that one person who had questions about the DC, Maryland, Virginia area and the different types of curriculums and schools asked that we read the full questions, but I think, Erica, you addressed it and said that, you know, if there were more individualized questions that we could, you know, we could definitely help by them reaching out to us using our contact information.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions was about there are a lot of schools in the DC metro area, and that is true. The intent is not to confuse you, but rather to give you options. So if you look at the standards, again, I think saying curriculum is really not the right choice of vocabulary because each school and each district may have different curricula. It's the standards, and if you read the standards by grade level, they're very broad, but they are grade level specific. And you'll find that third grade standards in DC public schools, and then you look in a particular, you know, surrounding metropolitan area. So we're not everywhere in DC and not everywhere in Maryland or Virginia. It's the public schools and it's their specific standards. And then from there is where you would use it as a point of reference. So I don't know if that helps to answer the question, but if you're not sure, again, the best thing to do is to reach out to us. Those are given just as a point of reference so that parents have a good point of reference, more so that when you return back to the US, specifically as your child matriculates into high school and on to college, so that they are prepared. That's one of the main intentions there. And I know Dr. Smalls hit on that a bit earlier.
Yes. Okay, this is going to be last call for questions. If you have them, you can go ahead and submit them. If you don't have any more, we do ask that you please complete the feedback option because we need your feedback so that we can refine these events and make them user-friendly and also discuss topics that you have interest in or need us to be more specific about. These sessions are for our families, so please complete the feedback. Okay, Erica, I don't see any more questions, so I am going to conclude the Q&A session. I definitely want to thank everyone for their attention and their attendance. We really appreciate it, and we hope that this event has helped to answer some questions that you may have had or increased your understanding in certain ways. Oops, a question just popped up. I think we have a little bit of time. Let's see. Okay, the question again is, do we need to go by the schools in DC or by our home state that we are from?
You do have that flexibility. And so on your education plan, I think Dr. Smalls mentioned that you have to indicate what state you're selecting. It is the onus of responsibility for you to just validate that your home state has alignment with DC. But yes, you can use your home state, specifically if you know you're going back to that state. But again, if you have questions about that, or specifically more about when it comes to purchasing materials and you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to us. And Shanna, that's on part 1 of the plan, correct? Where that selection is made? Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's clarifying. On part 1. So if they decide to, like you said, enter a state that is not in Maryland or Virginia or the District of Columbia, which of course isn't a state, but that option is there, then they just need to indicate it and they're just certifying that they are aligning their standards, as you said, with the DMV standards, and then that is it. They have full control over which standards they select. Okay, so this concludes our question and answer session. Again, thank you for your attendance. Erica, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, I think just to echo your commentary, we appreciate your time. Our team is here to serve you. And so if you have any additional questions for us, please feel free to reach out. And we look forward to hosting additional sessions going into the summer and next school year. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.